The morning of Sarbakusa did not begin like a battle. It began like an execution. 3 armies marched toward the same valley, not for glory, not for land, but for the throne of Ethiopia itself. A king, a pretender, and a warlord who refused to bow to anyone. By noon, the sky over Sarbakusa was black with smoke. Gunpowder thundered through the hills. Cavalry tore across the valley like storms breaking against rock. And the ground shook with a violence so great that Ethiopian chronicles say the earth itself groaned under the weight of ambition. This was not a civil war. This was a knife fight for the soul of an empire. When the dust settled, one truth remained. Sarbakusa did not crown a victor. It chose a survivor. This is the forgotten clash where Ethiopia's future was forged in fire. The day the empire killed its own age and created a new one. Ethiopia in the 1760s was not a land at peace. It was an empire stretched thin, a kingdom ruled by kings in name, but by warlords in truth. Historians call it the Zemene Mesafint, the era of princes, a period when the throne sat like an empty seat at a feast, and everyone wanted a bite. Power shifted like sand. Alliances formed at sunrise and died by sundown. And behind it all stood Emperor Tekle Haymanot II, a monarch struggling to command an empire that no longer listened. But he had one loyal shield, Wand Bewossen, a seasoned noble with troops, strategy, and the will to keep the empire from collapsing. Opposing them was a name whispered with caution across the highlands. Ras Mikael Sehul, a political mastermind from Tigray who already tasted the crown's power and wanted more. He believed Ethiopia needed a ruler strong enough to break the cycle of chaos, and he believed that he was that ruler. Then there was the wild card, Fasil Tesemma, the feared lord of Damot, an unpredictable warrior whose loyalty shifted with the wind. 3 forces, 3 ambitions, one crumbling empire caught between them. By 1771, the tension broke. Voices turned into threats, threats into marches, and marches into armies converging on a single valley, Sarbakusa, a place that would decide who controlled Ethiopia and who would be erased from its history. The road to Sarbakusa looked quiet. Grass moved softly in the wind. Birds circled above the ravines. But beneath that calm, armies were moving, each convinced destiny rode on its shoulders. Wand Bewossen, defending the emperor, marched with a coalition army drawn from Begemder and Gojam. Sources estimate 15,000 to 20,000 warriors, hardened men who believed this battle was not just political, it was a fight to keep Ethiopia united. Across the valley, Ras Mikael Sehul advanced with an army from Tigray. Experienced, controlled. A force shaped by discipline rather than desperation. And in the shadows of the conflict, approached Fasil Tesemma not as an ally, not as an enemy, but as the storm no one could predict. Ethiopian chronicles describe the buildup as a land where every path carried a marching army. Each side believed the other would break first. Each side believed God stood with them. Each side believed Sarbakusa was the place where fate would finally choose. No one realized yet, Sarbakusa wasn't choosing. It was waiting. The morning the battle began, the air felt heavy as if the land itself understood what was coming. Bewossen's scouts spotted dust on the horizon. Mikael Sehul's vanguard emerging in disciplined formation, their shields catching the early sun. The first strikes were not chaotic charges. They were calculated spear lines advancing with precision, volleys of musket fire rolling like thunder across the valley. Historians describe the opening as a chess match executed with steel. Bewossen's men pushed forward. Sehul's troops held firm. Each side tested the other's resolve, probing, retreating, advancing again. Every hill became a strong point, every ravine a trap. Every foot of ground was earned, not given. Then something unexpected happened. Fasil Tesemma appeared on the ridge with thousands. Neither side knew whose banner he followed. The sight of his approaching column froze the battlefield. For a moment, Sarbakusa itself held its breath. And then, Fasil descended not toward Sehul, not toward Bewossen, but toward the center of the valley, ready to strike whichever side exposed weakness first. The Battle of Sarbakusa had officially become a three-way storm. What followed was chaos woven with strategy. Sehul attempted to anchor his right flank along the river bend, trying to trap Bewossen's forces against the valley wall. Bewossen saw it coming and countered with a sweeping maneuver that Ethiopian sources call the turning of the mountain. He repositioned his troops with astonishing speed, avoiding encirclement by inches. But Fasil struck like lightning. He attacked Sehul's rear with sudden, violent pressure, forcing the Tigrayan commander to split his forces. Then, without warning, Fasil wheeled and hammered Bewossen's flank, testing both sides, refusing to commit fully to either. Western historians describe him as a warlord who treated the battlefield like a stage. Ethiopian sources describe something else. A man who believed the throne should fear him, not the other way around. Dust rose so high it blurred friend from foe. War cries echoed off the cliffs. The valley shook as all three armies collided again and again, neither side able to deliver a finishing blow. The fate of Ethiopia hung on a knife's edge. Yet, in the swirling madness, Bewossen noticed something. Fasil's fury was masking a weakness in Sehul's lines, and that weakness could end the war. By late afternoon, Sarbakusa began to tilt. Sehul's army stretched thin by fighting in two directions, started to lose cohesion. Signals were missed, formations faltered. The once steady advance turned into scattered resistance. Bewossen seized the moment. He ordered a coordinated push across the entire front. Not a reckless charge, but a tightening vice. Musket volleys lit the cliffs. Shield formations pressed forward like walls of moving iron. Drums thundered across the valley. Fasil, sensing the momentum, struck Sehul's rear again with brutal timing. Ethiopian chronicles describe this moment simply as the hour the ridge cracked. Sehul's troops fell back step by step, their discipline dissolving under the relentless pressure. The man who had once controlled emperors now faced the one thing no strategist can outmaneuver: a battle turning against him. Some units attempted to hold the line. Others withdrew toward the northern slope. But the valley had already made its choice. Bewossen and Fasil enemies on any other day had become the accidental hammer and anvil. And Mikael Sehul was the iron caught between them. By sunset, the Tigrayan army was in full retreat. Sarbakusa had spoken. When the fighting finally stopped, silence fell over the valley. Not the silence of peace, the silence of exhaustion, of an empire realizing it had survived its own collapse. Sehul's power was shattered. The man who once held the Ethiopian throne in his palm left the battlefield beaten, his influence broken. Fasil returned to his territory victorious, feared, and unpredictable as ever. His role at Sarbakusa became legend, a reminder that no one could predict the ambitions hidden within Ethiopia's mountains. And Bewossen. He emerged as the unexpected stabilizer, the commander who held the empire together when the throne itself was losing balance. Historians say Sarbakusa did not end Ethiopia's era of princes, but it shifted it, reshaped it, rewired it. Political power rearranged overnight. New alliances formed from the ashes. New rivalries simmered beneath the embers. Ethiopian chronicles describe the aftermath as a kingdom reborn through fire. And generations later, Sarbakusa still stands as one of the most intense, complex, and decisive battles of Ethiopia's internal wars, a moment when ambition, destiny, and violence collided so fiercely that the land itself seemed to remember it. Sarbakusa was not just a battle. It was a reckoning. A moment when Ethiopia proved once again that even in its darkest hours, it refuses to break quietly.